Welcome to Just Wanna Quilt, a research podcast coming out of Tulane University Law School, where we explore all kinds of things, stories about quilting, tools, field trips, maybe some famous quilters stop by, and, of course, a little bit of copyright thrown in just for fun. This is Elizabeth Townsend Guard, your host, and I'm a law professor at Tulane University Law School and a faculty fellow at the A.B. Friedman School of Business at Tulane. And I just want to quilt. So today we're joined by Theresa McFarling. She's been on the show before. She's part of our quilting army, and we're talking about copyright. Specifically, we're talking about using quotes from songs in quilts. So a lot of you have this question. We talk a lot about it, and we do a little bit of fair use work.
Yep. I'm Theresa McFarling from West Des Moines, Iowa.
And we've chatted before, right?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So my Tom Petty quilt. So we are talking about Tom Petty quilts. What is that? Like, why? What is that?
No, it's, I don't know. It's like, so improv piecing, right? And improv words.
Right.
And I bought this book maybe 10 years ago. It's Tanya Rikushi. I'm saying her last name wrong, but it's called Wordplay Quilt.
Oh, yeah.
And I bought it,
right.
and of course
it's
I
like
studied it.
Wordplay quilts are like,
what?
That book is really influential to a lot of people. That's a big book.
Yeah, and it's not in print anymore. And it's like, you can get it on Amazon for like $100 now. I think she needs to reprint it, totally.
Interesting. All right, Wordplay quilts. Okay, so I'm there. Actually, somehow you can get used ones that aren't terrible. Oh, new from $65. Yes, used from $35. That is
that's better.
That's better. But that's weird that it's so expensive. Okay, so Wordplay quilts. It's like I've interviewed a lot of people who read this book. This is like 2010. Tanya Rikushi, is that how you say it? And it was
I don't know how you say it. I don't know. I follow her on Instagram.
And
I don't know how to say her name.
A thing, and it influenced many modern quilters. Many.
I think she was influenced by Gwen Marston. Does that sound familiar? If I'm saying her name right?
Yeah.
So I think she was pretty much a pioneer in the improv word stuff. And I think Tanya learned from her and then wrote this pattern book, which I guard with my life. Yeah, yes. I love it so much.
Right.
So improv quilting is, to me, I'm basically a traditional quilter, but when you read this wordplay quilt and then you start doing it, so there's no measuring, there's no rotary cutting, there's no trying to be precise. It's just, I feel like Edward Scissorhands, and I'm down here just slicing and dicing, and it's a huge mess. The black and the neutrals get all over just because you're just trimming little bits. But it's the most freeing I've ever felt sewing. Like, I literally laugh out loud sewing.
So is it, because I'm looking at it, and you took what you did is you took a quote from a Tom Petty song. Is that right?
Yes.
And you made it into a quilt, which is really gorgeous. And, of course, taking a quote from song lyrics is completely fine. Do you plan on selling it or making it into patterns, or is it just a one-off quilt?
Yeah, it's just one-off.
Yeah, it really doesn't matter. All right, so tell me, like, it's pieced. Oh, I guess I see what you're doing. So the technique is you just you're adding bits. Does it help you to learn how to make the alphabet itself? Does it go through sort of strategy of each letter? Because each letter has particular things.
And it didn't work. Like, I drafted it and I put it in Excel to see how much room I needed for each letter, and it didn't work at all. This is the way it turned out is nothing like how I pictured it in my head. And then, like, with the first row, I'm learning to fly. I was like, okay, so let me adjust a little bit. And so then I adjusted and got back on course, and no, I followed nothing that I had
It
planned,
is so
measured,
pretty.
and
Oh my gosh, it's so pretty. And so then you put, what did you do? So you do the piecing of the letters as improv, and then do you put it into a particular quilt? It's so beautiful. It's so cool. It's so,
I have a huge bin of neutrals. That I mean, I keep it pretty close to my sewing area, so I'm always digging in there for little creative, funky bits of neutrals.
yeah.
So I just started piecing them together, and then when I had enough to do the letter, I just cut that one up, cut that little chunk of improv bits up,
Oh,
and
so you
then
do the improv
inserted the
bits
letter.
and then made the letter. That's really interesting. It's really cool. We'll post a picture of it. It is so interesting. Okay, so let's chat a little bit more. So do you have questions about it in terms of the technique? Is that protected, do you think? The technique from the book?
No, I mean, so do you mean as far as like if she's copyrighted it,
yeah.
or?
Yeah, can she keep
No, I think it's more like the song in itself. It's like it's Tom Petty's lyrics, and I looked it up, and Tom Petty wrote it. And I mean, we had gone to to Tom Petty's concert like 3 months before he passed away.
Yeah.
And you know, I'm a child of the '80s,
right.
as far as music goes, and
that was a big one.
Yeah, I mean, so my teenage angst years was lived with a lot of Tom Petty and Def Leppard and Journey and Speedwagon. Right. I mean, songs are so important in my teenage angst years. So I mean, it's Tom Petty's lyrics, and he did write them, but he's passed away.
So that's really interesting. So the fact that he passed away, can we do a little copyright lesson? So the fact that he passed away doesn't change the status of the work. I mean, it starts the clock. So once he passed away, we knew how long the term of copyright would last, which is life plus 70. So it's still under copyright for 70 years. The song, if he wrote it, did he write the song?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So that is fine. Copyright's long. But what you're doing, I think, first of all, it's your expression of that particular lyric, and it's just a quote. And quotes, you can use quotes. So that comes under fair use. So you're expressing yourself, and you're sad, and you're whatever, and you want to express it, and that's completely fine. Using a quote in a quilt, particularly if you're not going to be selling the pattern or selling, multiple versions of it. But even then, I think it would be really hard-pressed to say that you couldn't do that. You're not using any kind of image of him. It is just that. And the thing that's so cool is that you kind of, what are those things are they like flying geese, like improv flying geese? It looks like you've got birds in it, right? It's got that kind of birdie thing. So again, you're kind of commenting on the lyric by adding in the stuff that you had. I don't know. I think it's really beautiful. I would not be concerned at all on the copyright side of taking a quote. Now, if you had used his image or something else, then that's a whole other thing. Then you have to go into transformative. But taking a quote from a lyric, that's fine. Copyright's okay with that.
So then would it have been, because I meant to add his name at the bottom, but I was sick of it at that point. I mean, it's labeled Finding Tom Petty, but would it have been more, I don't know, what the right word is?
Like right of attribution.
To add his name at the bottom?
No, you don't have to. I mean, it's your artistic thing. So you could put it on the label. You could say this is this is a lyric from this song on the thing. Copyright doesn't require you to have right of attribution on things, which is super, super weird. But our culture does. So yeah, I mean, I think you're fine on every level. I mean, that's the thing that's so interesting is people get very worried about like song lyrics a lot of the time. And if you are doing this is definitely transformative of that. You didn't use very much of it. It's a quote. You're commenting on it in some way by what you did with the kind of almost bird-like things that you added, so that I think it's great. I mean, I think it's a great example of like why copyright
I
is
was
great.
kind of, I was kind of shocked by the feedback I got back because I entered it in Iowa State Fair and I entered it in the Des Moines Quilt Guild show, and I got really good feedback on it. I have a spot where my binding was bad and I knew it, but I didn't fix it because I just didn't think it was a contender for any kind of ribbon. But I am going to fix it, and I think I'm going to try to enter it in the modern QuiltCon.
Yeah, I think that would be great. It's really beautiful. It's so great.
Thanks.
It really is.
Yeah, I need to make more.
So cool. Yeah. So, I mean, I would say on the copyright side, quotes are good. Quotes are easy. Quotes are, especially if you're commenting, criticizing, and you're commenting on it by the way there's more. It just does transform those lyrics in really nice ways, and we like transformative uses. You didn't use the whole song. You're not commercializing it. So there's 4 factors you look at for fair use. One is, we don't even have to go through them, but for this one, if you're using a quote of something, it's fine. Quotes are good. We like quotes.
So that's interesting that you said that, because I'm doing one that is the whole One Tin Soldier song. Mm-hmm. I mean, I say I'm doing it loosely. Yeah. It's been in the works for 5 years, and I'm still not even halfway done. But if that's the whole song, is that different?
Well, right. So let me get the 4 factors up. Let's take a look. I think you're fine, but I'm not your lawyer, and let's do fair use since we have time. So let me pull it up because it's better for me to do it that way because I don't like relying on memory. Okay, so Section 107. So we can say with Tom Petty. So Tom Petty writes a song. He gets a copyright on it for that song. He probably registers it with the Copyright Office to get better protection than just writing it because it doesn't give you very much protection. But then we say as a society, you can't just, it's not an absolute property right for his life plus 70 years. We all have to be able to use it in different scenarios. And one of them is fair use. So here's the preamble. So notwithstanding the provisions of Section 106 and 106A, so those are the exclusive rights you get and moral rights in artistic works. So we're going to put that aside. The fair use of a copyrighted work, including such use by reproduction, in copies or photo records, or by any other means specified by that section. And this is for the purposes of criticism. So you're taking a copyrighted work, the fair use of a copyrighted work for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, including multiple copies for classroom use, scholarship, or research, is not an infringement of copyright. So that's the preamble. And what we see is that art is very, very strongly protected by copyright. And so we include art under criticism or comment or other sort of things. In determining whether the use made of a work in any particular case is a fair use, the factors shall be considered. So you don't get if I only use 10%. And there's no such thing. So you have to go through this 4-factor test. And we can go through it. So we also see that, as I said, art gets protected in crazy significant ways. So let's look at the 4 factors. The first one, the purpose and character of the use. That's your use, including whether such use is of commercial nature or non-profit educational purpose. Okay, so this is the big one. Number 1 and 4 are huge. So number 1, we're going to ask, what's the purpose of your use? And are you making a commercial? Are you making actual commercial that you're going to put on TV? No. Are you going to commercialize it and sell it in mass quantities?
No. I would be dead before I finish.
Yeah. And then being a commercial nature or nonprofit nature isn't dispositive, but you can kind of see that if you were using it in a classroom, you were teaching people how to do something. Think about not a quilting classroom, but you're in an elementary school classroom and you're teaching people using Tom Petty's song how to do something, right? So we're going to be, but it's not dispositive. Okay, the nature of the copyrighted work. So this isn't a creative work. It's a song. The nature of the work goes back to the original work, and it's a song. So we give it stronger protection than, say, a database or a history book, right? It gets stronger protection because it took more, theoretically, it took more creativity to be creative, to be, done. The amount and substantiality of the portion used in relationship to the copyrighted work as a whole. Oh, we have to go back to one in one more second. So you didn't take very much, right? You took one bit, so that helps. That's in your favor. So, and then the effective use on the potential market of the copyrighted work. Okay, so how is your quilt going to somehow affect the marketplace or the licensing opportunities for the Tom Petty song?
Yeah, no. Yeah, no way.
Right? Okay, so then there's one more component that's really important, which is under number 1, and that's this concept of transformative use. And what we're seeing in courts is that it's getting stronger and stronger, this concept of... So if you take... There was just a recent Andy Warhol case where they had taken a photograph. I think they even had licensed it, which never made any sense to me. But they had taken a photograph of Prince, and then Andy Warhol had done all his Andy Warholness to it, made it all totally different. It was like his face, but it was like with purple and pink and all kinds of weird stuff. It just looked very different than the photograph. And the court in that case said it was transformative and it was a fair use. So we're seeing that if the art, and especially for art cases, if the art is making it has a different message, it is taking it and putting all kinds of weird things on it and doing things to it, the courts are seeing it as protected, which is what you did, right? You took the lyrics and you transformed it into another kind of messagey thing. And you didn't take very much. So, I mean, I think that that's what's so interesting about it, and I really hope that quilters we're writing about it. So I've written a teeny tiny book about it. Now we're writing a bigger book about all these sort of strategies for copyright and fair use. But fair use is our friend, and what you're doing totally falls under fair use, at least in my opinion, my regular human opinion, not your. So. Yeah.
So then that leads me to another thing. So, I mean, you can kind of tell I love quotes and poetry and music, but I found a poem online, and it's so good. I'll have to send you a picture of it.
Yeah.
But I loved it so much that I stitched it out, and I'm actually going to enter it in our guild's President's Challenge.
Yeah.
But I can't find the author anyway. I found it on Reddit just as a screenshot.
Yeah.
And I love it, and I gave it a title because it didn't have a title.
Yeah. But
I can't find the author anywher. I mean,
I think that you say that in, I think you say unknown author or sort of, or put where you found it. But again, I think what you're doing with the poem is transforming it in really interesting ways. Now, is it a market replacement? Are you selling it? Like, you go through all of that list, and I don't think that's what you're doing. So, I mean, I think, will quilt shows be freaked out about it? I don't know, because they may have a different standard. Everybody can sort of decide what they want. Some publishers a while back weren't allowing fair use, which was really stupid because you need quotes and things, but they were too afraid of litigation. But no one's going to, who's going to sue you, right? Like, that's really the end result. And what would happen if the person who had the poem got upset with you? You would get a notice, like, don't put it in a quilt show, or take it down. And you probably just take it down, right?
And so it's really not like some lowly, starving artist, poet is going to have the resources to bring legal action against me. It's more like, am I a mean person? Am I not a moral person? Right. Am I?
No. And I have to say that, there's layers, right? Copyright's an economic system. I remember I was at the Holocaust Museum, and I had asked them if they had gotten permission for these Nazi things. It was this whole exhibit about Nazis, and they said one of the not the institution, but one of the scholars working on it said, "Who cares? They're Nazis." And that sort of freaked me out because copyright isn't like that, right? We don't have well, if you're a Nazi, you don't get copyright. There's no moral. It's an economic system. So then you put on the layer of culture and custom. So in that situation, like, Nazis weren't going to sue the Holocaust Museum. That would be, they would just be like, bring it on, right? But in our quilting world, that's different. So we really believe that we respect the pattern makers. We respect who we're inspired by. We respect the photograph that's used. We're all about sort of tracing, because we're built on that, right? Where did the block come from? All these things. We like our history. And so as part of the culture of who we are, we do provenance. That's why we made a provenance book, so you can record everything as you go, so you can keep track of all of it. And that's why, because as a culture, as a community, we do care. So, I mean, I do think that you say anonymous, in search of the author kind of thing. This was a beautiful poem that was found on still in search of the author. Something like that. You can also put on, if you put it up, if anyone knows of the author, please let me know, because I would love to show them what they've inspired or whatever. So
sure. Sure.
I think, but that's custom. Does that make sense? So I think that's all very important. The copyright, it's not about like, are you going to go to copyright jail? No. Are you going to get sued? Probably not, right? It has to be registered. It has to go to federal court. It's all kind of, it's all very like, it's a lot, Are they going to like try to scare you? Probably not, right? So.
Yeah, I try to put myself in that position. If I wrote something beautiful and I saw it 2 years later on a quilt, what would I and that happens. Like you see on Facebook, these weird companies that have posted pictures of other people's hard work.
Yeah.
And they're just selling blankets that are
and that part
pictures of quilts somebody made. And
and that one is even more scandalous, because they're just trying to get your credit card information. They're not actually selling you copies of they're taking images of quilts. They did this with the movie industry for CDs. They are putting up pictures of quilts that they are saying you can get for $50, which we all know is just like, it would be a scam, right? Like you take a photograph and print it on something. So already our sort of, this can't be real is already happening. But you never get the quilt. It's just a credit card scam. So
then how does Facebook not recognize these over and over again?
I don't know. But it's like I talked to somebody at a major studio about it when I first learned about it. And they're like, oh, yeah, that's been happening to us for years. And he said, and then what happens is they didn't, at least for the movie studios, they never get their CD. And so, or their DVD, and they complain to the movie studio, and the movie studio is like, you didn't buy it from us, and that wasn't real. So this is kind of like an FBI, federal issue that happens. But it's fraud it's credit card fraud. They're using it's copyright infringement too, because they're using an unauthorized reproduction of an image, right? But it's not you don't get anything. So.
Yeah, that's scary.
Yeah, totally, right. I think really what it is, though, is if it's too good to be true, it's too good to be true,
Yeah, I just think there's so many people out there that don't know the difference between a quilt and and they look like they're selling quilts, but they're not. They're like... They're
not selling anything.
Pre-printed.
Yeah, pre-printed.
And people are like, oh my gosh, this Chicago Cubs quilt that is $50.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. You try to be vigilante and keep commenting on all of them, but you can't keep up with them.
No. And the thing is, I think that it kind of, I think you have to educate people. And I think that's what our next phase of our project is, we're just publishing like this weekend, 3 titles, and we have a few more in the works. And the goal is really just education, so people feel confident in what they're doing. And, and we see that already happening with the Facebook group, don't you think? We're getting consistently people know, people are learning copyright, and it's amazing. And it's the law that protects creativity. So any creative should be, learning the copyright they need to know to be confident in what they're doing. It impacts your choices as you're creating. So if you wonder, can I do this? Can I not do this? When you could easily say, yeah, this is what you did as a transformative use. It's non-commercial. You used a small bit of it, and it's not impacting the market. That is a really easy thing to sort of know, right? And that makes you confident to sort of do that. It's easy. And if someone says, well, you're not allowed to do that, even a quilt show, you can be like, look, I'm asserting my fair use, and this is my fair use analysis I did. And, it's legal. So, push back a bit. So that's my feeling, empowerment. So, yeah.
Interesting. Well, I am going to submit Tom Petty into QuiltCon. I don't know if it'll get accepted, but
well, keep us
it's my
posted
next
on
goal
that.
in life is to get a quilt accepted somewhere.
That's
so.
very cool. Well, keep us posted. And again, sort of, I'll be really curious to see what they ask for in terms of, how they respond to it. But I mean, I think it totally falls into fair use. It's just not a problem. And as I said, the courts are going pretty far with artwork in terms of what counts as transformative. And that means you don't have to get permission. I mean, if it's under fair use, you're not getting permission from the author. You're not giving them a royalty, or you're not getting a license. Fair use allows you to use it without asking permission.
Right. Yeah, that's interesting that you said, as far as what the QuiltCon powers that be will think of it, or comment as far as, like you said, what their initial reactions will be. Yeah, that'll be interesting to get. Because I don't know. I have a lot of these in my mind that I want to get done. Not exactly the same, but that I want to do. But they're more like display in my own home, but that impacts me on a daily basis.
Yeah, and for that, copyright says if it's for personal use and even show a public display, they don't see quilts as a public display, which I think is super interesting. You can do what you want to do. I mean, it's an economic system. If you're not putting it into the stream, the stream of commerce, you're fine. You're totally fine. It's when you start to sell things. And I think for the quilt shows, they worry, but again, if you have a legitimate, a fair use analysis, or this is in the public domain, or whatever it is that you're explaining about the copyright part, you're fine. You should be fine.
Yeah.
So
it's interesting too, because I don't know. I've never associated with QuiltCon or the Modern Quilt Guild, so it'll be interesting to see how.
Yeah, totally.
That outside of a quilt guild operates.
I love I mean, seriously, I love it. I think it's such a cool quilt. I can't wait to see what its journey is.
Yeah. Me too.
Really
we'll see what happens. I got to fix that binding. Me and binding are not friends. I don't know why.
You know who? Ebony Love is coming out with a whole binding book thing. She's obsessed with binding. You should. I'm supposed to interview about it, but she's got a new book all about binding, and she said she's totally completely obsessed. So you might check that out. I don't know. I haven't seen it yet, but that's what she's been talking about on Facebook, and she's got cool stuff.
That'll be interesting because that's my goal this year is to focus on
binding.
Being a better binder.
Better binder. Well, she's doing that. That's what her book is. I haven't seen the book yet, but that's all of it. Like she said that she's just a binding obsessed. So I think that's really interesting. We'll have to see if she
that'll be good.
Yes. Binding.
Yeah, I haven't found any really great resources on binding. So
yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? I have this one, I have a stack of quilts that need to be bound. It's really binding. It's so sad and pathetic.
Yeah, I'm finally at the point where I have a couple that need binding. I'm working on this hand applique quilt that takes all of my extra hand sewing time, but I'm just why am I not getting that done? Why?
So funny.
I don't know.
It's so funny. I've been taking the quilts to faculty meetings. So every time I come with a different, so I figure if I have to be in a faculty meeting, which is not my favorite place to be, then I'll do the binding, which is not my favorite thing to do. So it seems like a perfect sort of, it's a perfect match of okay.
I told my husband that too, because I work from home a couple days a week now, and I was like, why do I not bind these and just sit there on these dumb conference calls?
Yeah, totally, right?
And do binding.
Totally. I think that's totally,
I don't know. Can't get there yet.
Yeah, it's funny. Well, you have to be prepared. That's the thing. It's the meetings, that's my other thing is that's why binding's better than other things, because you got to be I tried piecing and hand piecing, but you had to be so prepared because you can't be but binding's quiet and you just need thread and a needle. So, the binding will get done. I just need to be on more committees, I think. So,
Yeah. Have you ever done machine binding?
I'm not good at it. So maybe Ebony's thing will help me because it turns out I just am so disappointed in it. Do you do machine binding?
No, I'm bad at it. So.
Yeah, so maybe she'll revolutionize the binding world by her book. I don't know. I wonder if her ears will be burning that we're talking about her. But we need her. We need her binding. It would be great to get everything bound. I'd like to catch up. It'd be really nice not to have the pile of quilts that just haunt me.
Or looking at you every day. Yeah.
I'd be like, So sometimes I just we just start using them and forget about the binding part. So.
Yeah. Do you sew every day?
Yes, not lately because I've been writing, and it seems like writing and sewing don't go together. So I think it's like the same kind of creative process. But I try to sew at least a little bit every day. Do you sew every day?
Yeah, I do. Yeah. I mean, I do go through slumps like a couple times a year where I'm like, I don't even want to look at that sewing machine. But I think I do every day.
It's nice, isn't it?
I have a sweet spot when I'm done working because I go into work so early, so I'm usually done by 3, and my husband doesn't get home till 5. So I have that sweet spot every day where.
Nice. Yeah, it's really nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a tendency to quilt at night. Like I think I'm going up to bed, but then I quilt for a little while, and it's just nice. It's a nice like transition, It's what you're saying, that sweet spot. And and I go on sabbatical just after Thanksgiving for 9 months, and so I think there'll be a lot more quilting.
Yeah. Although I will say my husband thinks quilts just kind of make themselves because he never really sees me sewing sometimes.
Oh, that's
and then that one's
because
done,
you're always
like,
that's so funny. That's like your quilt fairy or elf. Ron's dad used to when I was in high school and college. Ron, my husband, we would have a puzzle out, and then in the morning, like all the hard parts were done. He was like a puzzle fairy, so you're like a quilt fairy.
Yeah. That's awesome.
We would literally say, amazing. We just got to go to bed. The puzzle fairy will take care of it because we can't deal with this puzzle anymore.
Yeah, the puzzle fairy. Yeah. Yeah, that's funny. Cool.
Cool.
Well, hopefully it gets accepted in QuiltCon. No guarantees, but I hope it does. I hope it does. If it doesn't, I'm just going to make another one and submit that one. Yeah.
Now, are you going to do any of the inventory quilts? Have you thought about inventory quilts at all for our new project?
So kind of weird. I had actually started one. So I have so many blues scraps, and so I had just started one. Like,
cool.
And then I saw your post, and I was like,
awesome.
Oh, I'm kind of doing this.
Yeah, totally. It's going to go on.
And
for
it was
a while.
Interesting. One of my blue scrap bins is almost empty doing this quilt.
Nice,
and I'm like,
right? That's cool.
Yeah, and then I had started a pink one that's almost, halfway done, trying to get rid of some pink scraps. And I don't even know how I buy pink. I'm not attracted to pink, but I end up with this huge scrap bin of pink.
I found I did one that's a rainbow one. That's my first one. Now I'm doing a Tula one. I'm going to try to do a red one. But I like it because it feels like you're using all those fabrics that are being neglected. I like that quite a bit. But I also found that I had to go buy stuff because I had no brown, like 3 browns. That's just pathetic. So that also the inventory.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah. It sort of you really do recognize like, okay, I have 3 bins of blue. We need to stop buying blue, right? So it's interesting.
But then do you keep buying blue?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Because they're so pretty. How could you not buy that blue fabric, right?
Yeah. The blues and the teals are just like, I need all of them.
Yes, the teals. The teals, they get me every time. They're so pretty. And I have an obsession with gray, too, so we got a lot of gray. But
Interesting. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see the quilts that come out of that prompt, so that's good.
Yeah, I'm excited about it. And Willow seems really enthusiastic, so we'll see how that goes. We have AccuQuilt is one of our sponsors, our big sponsor, and we have a lot of little sponsors, but it'll be interesting. I think also once we get through the new year, we're going to try to see if pattern makers will come on and do their own patterns as inventory quilts. So sort of see if we can sort of have inspiration from the pattern makers.
Interesting. And that's after the first of the year because a couple of friends and I are working on I can't say too much, but we're working on something amazing I've never seen before.
Cool. Are you going to make it into a pattern?
Yeah.
Cool. Well, we'll have to come on,
that's the goal.
We can feature it, and people can buy it, and we've got this whole thing. Yeah. So will it be a digital pattern?
Yeah. I don't. Well, maybe. It's more like a teaching kind of opportunity.
Oh, that's so cool.
And I just haven't seen anything like it, and I So we're kind of working on that.
Do you think you're going to do
so,
like a class or online, or do you know what you're like? I'm looking at platforms right now for all the things we've been doing. So I'm curious, will you do it as an in-person opportunity or book, or do you not know yet what you're going to do?
Probably not in person, but we'll see how it progresses. It's,
cool.
it's a really, really neat idea. And I think it's when I was quilting, or even when I'm learning quilting, I would have loved this.
Oh, this is
so
cool.
I'm hoping that.
And you're being so super clever because, ideas are not protected. So you keep that close until you've got it's fixed and it's out there. Because anybody can take your idea and use it, that's ideas.
Yeah, and I have a tendency to run my mouth. I'm like, this is so exciting. Let me tell the world.
Yes, so not yet.
I'm trying to.
Well, you guys have to come back and we'll do a podcast about it. It will be great.
Yeah, that'll be great. Yeah, we'll keep you in the loop on it because it's I'm very excited about it.
Awesome.
It's the fact that it's new and exciting, and honestly, you don't find that much anymore with quilting.
Yeah, there's a lot out there already, isn't there? Well,
yeah.
Awesome. I totally love spending time with you, and thank you for rescheduling. Our the internet wasn't working at all. It was totally insane for that, and had to reschedule everything.
Yeah, no, absolutely, no problem.
It was terrible. So
you.
the internet wasn't working, and we had a boil alert for like 4 days or 5 days. A water boil alert. So it was like, things are going well.
Was that
here.
because of the
No.
Was it the Hard Rock Cafe thing?
Oh, I know. It was the same time when the building fell down. No, it had nothing to do with that. It just our city gets low pressure on the water, and then it has to do a boil advisory, a boil alert. So it was on for part of the city where we live for like 4 or 5 days, and the restaurants were having
horrible.
Trouble. Yeah, so you couldn't get all the restaurants in our area were really freaking out too because they didn't have water to use really.
That's horrible. Oh my gosh.
Right? I know. Like what others do other cities have this? I don't know, but New Orleans we have boil advisories a lot here. It's really ridiculous.
No, I haven't heard of that since 1967. I don't know. No,
it's true. It's so true. But we live in if it's going to happen anywhere, it would totally be New Orleans. So. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that sounds awful.
And you always hear about it after you've taken a bath or brushed your teeth. You're like, oh crap.
Yeah. Where are those extra antibiotics I saved? Yeah.
Exactly. You're like, we'll be fine. So cool.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, you're fine.
So are you quilting today? What are you doing today?
I am. My son, who lives in Denver, came out for a quick visit. So we're going to go to the apple orchard, pumpkin time stuff. And
nice.
So I'm going to do something other than spend my whole day in my sewing room. So
that is nice.
We'll see how that goes.
Well, I hope you have a lovely time. I'm so glad we chatted. This is so great. Are you cool with us posting this? Do you need to review it?
Do I what?
Do you need to review before I post?
No, not at all.
Awesome. Cool. Awesome. Well, we'll let you know.
Yeah.
We're a little behind on everything, but it's because of market. We go to market next week, and it's just like the most insane thing ever. So, but after that, freedom. So, all right, cool. Well, thanks again for chatting. And your quilt is beautiful. It's so beautiful.
Thank you. I'm crossing my fingers it gets accepted. We'll see.
Great. Cool. Awesome. All right. Take care. We'll chat soon.
Okay. Thank you. Bye.
So you've been listening to Just Wanna Quilt, a research podcast coming out of Tulane University Law School. And I'm Elizabeth Townsend Garr. If you like this podcast, keep listening. Also, we have a Facebook group. Come join us. We talk about a lot of things. We also have an Instagram account. And of course, most importantly, I really hope you get a chance to quilt today.